Timur, this is a very interesting book. Pretend I'm a commissioning editor and make the pitch.
Well, it's Adolf Hitler waking up, 56-year-olds today. I don't have to explain why, because it's fiction, and so I can get away with it. And he has no help, he has his uniform, he has no paper, he has no money, he has nothing. And from that point on, he is trying to make a living, starting not at once to have a career, but he's starting to make a living, and we are going with him, and we are following his steps from the best place possible, from inside his head, because he is our narrator. My agent went to 10 editing companies, publishing companies, and said, I have a very interesting book, it's something special, and I don't tell you what it's about. So I give it to you, and after the weekend, please tell me what you think about it. And that was pretty much what I did with my agent when I, in the beginning, showed him the first 50 pages, or her the first 50 pages. I don't tell you what it's all about, but try it and tell me if you want to have more. And of course, this all is working on a matter of trust, because she can't do it with every author she has to ask her, and she can do this entrance not for every book she has. She cannot every time tell it's a special book.
You see, the only bit that is actually implausible is that Hitler wakens up after all this time. The rest of what happens is absolutely plausible, and that's what's so scary about it.
I hope so, because that was my personal rule, that I didn't want to cheat. But it's if you want to have it that way, it's a fantastic novel with one fantastic element. That's the element of time traveling, which has been done before, but not with Hitler.
So Hitler's back, but the thing is, he is quite happy to go back to the beginning, to where he was at the start, as a pathetic, ridiculed figure, and work his way back up with great pragmatism. That's quite unnerving, that.
Yeah, actually, we have a Hitler who hasn't learned anything, and it helped that he believed back then that destiny sent him. So, because one of those questions I had to deal with was, would he accept this new situation? He would have to deal with this time traveling. How would he explain it to himself? And of course, the explanation is, well, destiny needed a good, perfect German, and it looked in his back catalogue, and they only had me. So maybe he would be the only person ready to believe that there is something as time traveling, and of course destiny has a reason.
Of course, the instant humour in this book is that Hitler is Hitler and maintains with a very straight face throughout that he is Hitler, but the people around him assume that he is a Hitler impersonator and that he is someone like Bruno Ganz.
Of course, that's what everyone would think if we meet him, because there is no such thing as time traveling. So how would we would say he's a very authentic Hitler? Now this Hitler guy, well, better than Ganz. Yeah, of course. And how could we make use of him? And if we are in some way connected to the media, I guess more or less anyone would try to bring him back there and to make some sort of profit of it.
I noticed, Timur, that a lot of the reviews and so on call this book a satire on Hitler and a satire on Nazis and so on, but it strikes me that it's more a satire on the media.
Yeah, it's important to have a draw, to say it in two easy words. So they most say it's a satire about Hitler, but actually I thought it's a satire with Hitler. He is not that funny. It's the fun of the clash of those two worlds. And this Hitler is, in the beginning, he's a bit helpless, but he gains strength and he shows he's able to analyze his surrounding, his world. He's able to react and he's able to use again. He gets back abilities we have forgotten about.
But the people who look more foolish than Hitler are people who work in television companies, in newspaper offices. Those are the people who are incredibly gullible.
They have one disadvantage. Other than the reader, they don't know about that this is the real Hitler. So that makes it a bit scary for the reader, because he sees this Hitler, how he's doing the same things like back then. He's saying it openly, what he's intending to do, and how clear should he get? And that leaves the reader in some very helpless situation, because he has to depend on those media people who don't get anything. And of course, I like this scary fun mixture.
It seems ridiculous when you read on the back of the book that Hitler becomes a kind of a stand-up comic and he ends up on a comedy program. But when you think about it, it's quite plausible that someone standing up in a contemporary comedy program delivering very offensive views can be seen as a satire on very offensive views, but in fact he means them. So it's very dangerous.
That was one of those worrying points, right? That if the real Hitler could do it, then almost anyone could do it easier. And you can draw some conclusions from the book. One of those conclusions is that you don't have in Germany those big right-wing parties at the moment, not because the people are so democratic and the people are safe. It's just because there is no charismatic leader breaking up all those limitations of his party and opening it up for other people. So yeah, it can get quite scary, but I hope it's a bit fun still.
On the subject of the right in Germany today, there's a very funny part of this book where Hitler goes to visit the right parties and is very disappointed by them, and they are indeed a very pathetic lot.
Absolutely. But of course people learned that he was able to show different sides of him, and he was able to act he was a gambler. And he was not gambling with small change. He was always going for it. He was gambling like he was bluffing at high stakes. And it was always the same trick. He did this in politics, and he did it in foreign politics. So yes, if he compares this way to this ways neo-Nazis have at Germany today, and they have to try to keep being legal, which he never would consider. So he can't be happy with them. This is not a fascist work, at least not for him.
For years, as you know, Timur, there's been a lot of comedy about Hitler, British comedy in particular, all these funny Hitlers all over the place. And in fact, I believe in Germany just after the war there were performances which ridiculed Hitler. But I thought, actually, I was of the belief that in Germany now, you just couldn't go there. This stuff was taboo.
No, you can go there, and people are going there. As a matter of fact, I was convinced that we already have enough funny Hitlers from foreign countries, from Monty Python, from Germany too. We have enough funny Hitlers. We have two Hitlers actually in Germany in our minds: the monster Hitler and the funny Hitler. But both Hitlers aren't realistic. And they are so present in our minds that I would say we wouldn't believe that any Hitler, any real Hitler, could have something like success today. And this is the wrong thought, I think. The real Hitler was different. And of course he wasn't a monster for 24 hours a day. And he could in some places be funny. But he had abilities. He could be charming, he could be in some ways intelligent, he could be pragmatic. And of course, we are always worrying about our politicians. They are doing so much compromise and always the wrong thing and always too late. And there's too much discussing. And of course, if someone is not looking like Hitler, but having fast decisions and promising fast decisions, and he can convince us, this could be attractive too, again, still.
Given that there are some people out there who are, for their age or whatever reason, may not know exactly what Hitler did, the extent of it, is there any risk in portraying him as you do, as a multifaceted, quite interesting and at times quite charming man?
In the opinion of lots of German critics, not only professional ones, but normal readers, you are reminded not often enough, because people expect Hitler to talk about the Holocaust and warfare and such of these crimes all of the time, which he didn't do. So we have made up what I call an instant Hitler, very compromised, consisting only of Holocaust and killing people. But
do you worry at all? Because there is a younger character in the book who works for him and is very fond of him until her grandmother puts her straight and says, look, that man you're working for is not funny at all.
Well, I think it's important to be reminded, but we all know what he did. And if you think this guy, who is portrayed there, is too nice, and he will tell you what he did back then and what he is going to do again. It's the experience I like to share with the reader, that this Hitler, he makes no secret of what he is going to do, and this is no empty threat. He did it back then and he is serious. And again, you sit there and you go with him to the neo-Nazi party, and you are on his side suddenly. You agree to him and say, yeah, go for it, Hitler. Show those neo-Nazis who's the real one. And it's a very strange experience. I think it's more important, the experience of showing that it is possible to agree, even if you would swear you wouldn't do it.
You grew up in Nuremberg, which is a place with very strong associations with Hitler and with the Nazi Party and so on. When you write a book like this, how does that go down with your friends and your family?
They are still my family and my friends, and well, they know my kind of humor, and most of them think, well, no wonder it came from this head. But actually, growing up in Nuremberg may have been helpful, because you have all those old buildings. You have this big Congress hall looking a bit like the Colosseum in Rome, and you are always, if you grow up there, always people tell you this is a bad building with bad people and everything, and oh yeah, very bad. And sometimes tourists come to this building looking like the Colosseum in Rome, and in a summer night when the sun goes down, it's actually beautiful, and say, oh, that's romantic. And then you say, well, yes, but do you know what this building was? Oh my God! So, but you have those two sides to it. Actually, there are worse buildings on the world, and you can see there must have been a fascinating side, and you can't deny it. What we are trying is to deny that it was attractive to be there, and we are not believing it anymore, that it was attractive to be one of them. Most people today are thinking, well, back then I would have been one of the victims, but you wouldn't have been. Most probably, you would have been one of the mainstream, making it possible, maybe helping.
To express these things, Timur, for you as a German to express these things, that there might be sections of Mein Kampf that make perfect sense, and that Hitler wasn't all bad and this sort of thing, does that get you into serious bother?
I don't think so. It's a free country still.
I mean, I don't mean to suggest that Germans are so unsophisticated that they can't discuss these matters in an important way, but I did think that the laws in Germany were so strict that many things with Nazi associations and so on it was out of the question to portray them, discuss them, make fun of them, etc.
There are two levels of that. In private, you can talk about anything. The difference is if someone comes holding a microphone up to you and it gets sort of official, then you remember there were lots of cases where people said wrong words or something which was not so clear, and people feel obliged to say, well, those crimes back then were very bad crimes, as if there would be good crimes too. So just to make it sure. And there is this need in people, and lots of people, mostly older people, to feel safe and to have the subject treated in a certain way, because that is the correct way to treat the subject. But on the other half, you have lots of young people, I'm not really young anymore, people 30, 40, who want to have a new way to discuss it, a new level, a more realistic level. And they are sick of hearing always the same formulas, because they know there is no real thought in it anymore. It's just doing a ritual.
A satire like this, which tells the story of an ordinary person apparently becoming a dictator, could work in any part of the world. But were you aiming it specifically at your own country, at Germany?
It could work anywhere, but it helps to having this character, because this Hitler guy is, as a dictator, he's a total failure. He has lost the war, and he has left his own country in there was no country left anymore. So if you go looking for other dictators, if you want to compare them, go to Spain, go to Portugal. those dictators were dictators but different, and they left their country in a better shape than ours. So it wouldn't work that well there. It helped having a dictator who was a complete failure.
Hitler doesn't like Angela Merkel.
Of course, but it's not fair because he wouldn't like any democratic politician. And it's all the same to him. And those chapters are modeled quite after those chapters in Mein Kampf, where he very well shows the weaknesses of democracy. Those are, Mein Kampf has very boring chapters, but those chapters are quite entertaining because he picks those weaknesses where we would agree and say, yeah, I hate those discussions, and I know that if party A says something, then party B has to be against it. And I see this is just a show because back in the rooms, they will talk to each other and will not hate each other. It's a bit ridiculous. So he's pointing those points quite well here.
Timur, thank you.
Thank you.